Good afternoon, everybody. Sam Romeo here, environmental educator at Allwood. And if you tuned in last week, I talked about these green plants behind me, honeysuckle, and why they're still green this time of year because they have a longer growing season. However, if you're ever walking in the woods, you may see trees like this that have brown leaves on them, but are still holding on pretty tightly for these leaves. And this is something that is called Marcescence. And there's a couple species of trees here in our woods that are kind of in between the spectrum of evergreen and deciduous trees that we don't really know why they hold on to these leaves, but we're going to go around and I'm going to talk about it a little bit. And maybe you can come up with your own theories. Now, before we start getting into it, we need to think about deciduous trees and why they lose their leaves in the first place. It's considered an adaptation that evolved to allow trees, to seasonally change with their environments, to help them reduce water loss, frost damage, during unfavorable seasons or drought, while increasing their, photosynthetic efficiency during the favorable seasons, which is spring and summer. Now, there are advantages and downsides, to this, but over millennia, most species seem to have settled into one or the other. Either they lose their leaves, like almost all these maple trees and hackberry here. There's some beech, there's some sycamore trees over there. But while we have some others, so here's an elm tree, there's a little beech tree that still are holding on to their leaves. Now, the question remains as to whether there is an ecological advantage to this, being somewhere in between. Well, a lot of biologists do agree that Marcescence is a juvenile trait, so this is a young elm tree here, so it's maybe, 5 feet tall. But why, retaining their leaves until spring could be better. Some theories is a means of slowing decomposition. And what that idea is these leaves are going to wait until spring to drop their leaves down to the ground. Okay? Now, a lot of these trees grow in infertile soils. Okay, that's where they're very successful. You can kind of see behind me we have a lot of oak trees and beech trees back here, even some elm trees, where they're a lot more successful in infertile soil. So the theory is that these trees wait until the decomposition below it with the other leaves has already kind of almost, started halfway through, and then it will drop its leaves down to the ground, hoping to have an advantage in springtime to adding a little more decomposition, or I guess you could say compost, to the bottom of the tree. Another theory, which is a good example for this elm tree here, you can see just above it, the canopy is pretty open, and some of the lower limbs here have leaves on it. The other theory suggests that retained leaves like this, especially on younger trees in the understory, are effective means of trapping snow, kind of like a fence, leading to more moisture at the base of the trees come spring. So there would be kind of a layer of snow up on top of here because the canopy is open, so it's going to get collected on top of there. And when it melts, it's going to get more moisture directly into the root system of the tree, rather than it, just being included into the watershed. And there's Walls Creek down there. So that is another theory. There are some other hypotheses, thoughts that leaves might provide some frost protection for new buds come springtime. And another study suggests that, the foliage could be deterrent to browsing deer. The buds are hidden by these leaves. And a lot of deer will come through and try to chew off the buds right there, the young buds of these trees. Oops, it's focusing. So in the springtime, this will start to open up, and a lot of deer, if you ever planted a young tree, some deer might be able to eat it. So the other theory here is that these leaves kind of hold off on producing the bud to deter the deer or any kind of herbivore from destroying it and reducing its growth. Now, we do not know if this provides a competitive benefit to beech and oak trees, but we do know that the two species are closely related. They are in the same family, beech and oak trees. And actually the beech family, get this, actually has evergreens in the family, like live oaks and tan oaks, for example, which we can't find in our region, by the way. But this may indeed be helpful for the trees in our region that it's especially dry and fertile soil and deer infested to protect a lot of those buds. But you know, some other theories think that they are just evolutionary delayed, moving away from their evergreen past and moving into the future of short-lived, you know, deciduous trees where they drop their leaves in the wintertime, just like all the rest of the deciduous trees that we have in our forest. Well, I want to thank you all for watching this week, and we'll see you next time.